It is now our privilege to welcome Alysa Nahmias to the stage with Cookie Queens.
Hi. How are you, Alyssa? Thank you.
Good. Thank you for having me.
Okay, Alyssa, how many people have already seen Cookie Queens in the audience?
Cool. We had a
Yes.
big theater, so
Yay. Well, it premiered. You can scan for your whole bio, but maybe I'll start with the same way I did with Sinead. So tell us a little bit about your filmmaking journey and how you ended up. We're going to talk about cookies separately, but a little bit about even your history with Sundance and filmmaking, and then we'll jump into how you made this incredibly beautiful, charming, gorgeous film.
so more generally me filmmaking
Yeah,
journey.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Are you some people filmmakers also? Okay, amazing. So like and then other miscellaneous industry and okay, funders. We love the funders too. Okay, so this is my Cookie Queens is my fourth feature documentary as a director. I am a director. I also produce with other directors. We all produce our own work always in documentary as directors, almost always. And then I also do truly love producing with other directors. So I did not go to film school. I was actually studying architecture and design art. I kind of knew I was an artist, but wasn't sure how. I also knew I didn't want to work in a studio alone all day. Like I knew I had to work collaboratively. So I started to study architecture, which I did love, and then discovered a story that I wanted to tell in that area. And I just had this vision that it had to be a film. So if I had known, that was a 10-year project, and if I had known what it would have taken to make a film, I definitely wouldn't have done it. But I'm so glad I did, And once that film, that was called Unfinished Spaces, about the Cuban National Art Schools, but kind of looking at the revolution through that. And that's how I first encountered Sundance, because that film was programmed. Actually, a friend of mine, an architect friend, knew Robert Redford, and so sent Mr. Redford a note like, "Hey, can you pay attention to this film?" Apparently, a couple months later, he watched it. I got a response back that was really heartening for me as an unknown young filmmaker. And also then the film was invited by that time actually to this Film Forward Festival, some of you may remember, that used to travel. And then I have done various I did a Sundance Momentum Fellowship through the Women at Sundance program in 2019 while I was making my next films, The New Bauhaus and Art and Crimes by Crimes, which ended up being distributed by MTV Docs and Paramount Plus a couple years ago. And then and producing wise, I mean, I've done a lot over the years. Unrest was my first Sundance film, and Jacki, you were a part of that. So thank you for your support on it, and others here, I think. That was directed by Jennifer Brea. And I had, as an EP, I Didn't See You There at the festival, directed by Reed Davenport, and as a consulting producer, The Tuba Thieves by Alysa Nahmias. And that connects to my work at an organization called Forward Doc, Documentary Filmmakers with Disabilities, which is a community of disabled filmmakers and active allies like myself. So check us out on that. But some of those directors also ended up being very involved with Forward Doc. That's kind of the very quick summary. I've also been a mentor at Sundance Catalyst, the Producing Lab, and other parts of Sundance. So it means a lot to me to be here. This is my first film as a director at the festival.
Yay. And let me tell you what a film to be a director for the first time here at the festival. So let's get into Cookie Queens, because there were laughs, there were tears, there were people jumping up, there were hugs, there was cuddles, there was just everything. And this film is brilliant. It is brilliant. I think we're going to be talking about this film for a very long time. I don't even know where to start. And any film that has pins and patches, too, is just...
Yeah, we have a couple pins. I got some special ones from the girls
And we have
limited editions.
Well, our SheMoney, we have our own green SheMoney pins. I feel like we designed for you.
Yeah.
So let me just read a quick summary of this film, because just like I did for the prior one, it's Girl Scout cookie season, and 4 tenacious girls, and they were exactly that, strive to be the top-selling cookie queen, navigating an 800 million business in which childhood and ambition collide. Meet Ara, Olive, Nikki, and Shannon Elizabeth, 4 Girl Scouts with big personalities and big ambitions. The mission, cookie sales. But their entrepreneurial spirit hints at bright futures ahead. Think future Supreme Court justices, CEOs, and beyond. And let me tell you, That is an accurate description. Alysa, sparkling film follows the girls through cookie selling season, highlighting the girls' charm and unsuspecting sharp business instincts. It isn't just fun and games, though. The girls and their families make real financial and time sacrifices to hit their goals, trading laid-back weekends for hours outside, wagons full of cookies in tow. Nahmias stays focused on the girl. That's your last name. I was like, who's that?
Nahmias.
Alysa stays focused on the girls and their individual journeys, offering a sincere, playful window into a multi-million-dollar industry powered by their cookie booths. It's a joyous, heartwarming, utterly sweet ride that cheers on the girls' grit and ingenuity. Oh my gosh. So let me tell you, this film, I often think about making a money film, and it's like there have been a few. Savvy was one by Robin Hauser and some others. And it's a hard film to talk about money when money's the subject. This film, the girls, the cookies, Girl Scouts was the subject, but the money theme just played through in so many places. Of course, the girls are selling cookies. That's economics. They're doing it to be able to afford things, different levels of affordability, different levels of privilege, how easy that journey was. It's how they're teaching financial, and I hate the word literacy. I talk about education, but how these girls are learning about money in the most real, tangible way. Because money, if you just teach money, like what does that even look like? Like who cares? They teach it, with the parents, these moments. So I just want to open it up for you start to talk about the film, because when I saw it, I wouldn't have said, oh, it's a money film, but oh my gosh, it's a film about girls and cookies and money. And it was brilliant. So just chat a little bit about how you came onto this project and found characters, because the characters are gorgeous. There's so much to share, but I'll just kick that off with a lot of gratitude, because this is the film. If I could have made a film, I would have made this film. It was fantastic.
I have that feeling about so many films that I love, so that means a lot to me. Thank you. So many films where I'm like, I'm so jealous, like how did they get to make that film? I wish I could have, like lovingly jealous. Okay, the film is personal for me, and yes, definitely about money from the start. But it did, my kids, after I made Art and Crimes and produced a film called Wildcat, my kids were like, Mom, my kids at the time were like 8 and 11, and they said, we like those movies, they're cool, but could you please make one that we really want to watch and tell our friends about? Because we're not really going to tell our friends about your film, that they have to watch it. And I really thought about it, that could be an interesting creative challenge. So I kind of had it, as an artist, I just have things in my antenna. It's almost like I put them in my antenna, where then if they appear, and I'm sure those of you who finance films or whatever also maybe have that intention around a film about money or whatever. And so then I was talking with two friends of mine who I met through the Sundance Labs, Michael Dweck and Gregory Kershaw, who I helped them with their film, The Truffle Hunters, when it was at Sundance Catalyst, that they're really brilliant filmmakers. And Michael has this curly hair, and he was sold cookies by a Girl Scout who was like, your curls are amazing. She came up to him at a restaurant, without showing the cookies. And then she's like, by the way, and her mom came around with a wagon. So, yeah. So exactly, Michael told this story, and Gregory and I were like, oh God, that's an amazing thing. And he's like, and there's more of them. There's all these girls who are like, there's all this money and all these wagons. But immediately for me, when he was telling that story, I'm like, oh, that feels like my experience in some ways of selling films all the time, pitching my ideas as an artist creatively, and also in selling the film once it's done, constantly on. And it just felt like that could be it. That could be the film that I can make, that could have a personal meaning for me, I'm interested in my work, in identity, self-invention, and the ways that individuals, ordinary individuals, not necessarily famous people, take on institutions and structural inequities. And so Girl Scouts is this kind of huge institution for these girls. It means a lot to them, and it has a lot of power for them. So then it was okay, we got to find the girls. And a few weeks later, we got an invitation or a call for entries to Sundance Catalyst was doing a development slate for alumni. And so we were able to put together some materials quickly, just written concept idea. And then we worked on a pitch deck and pitched it there and got financing from really generous Catalyst investors and donors, and actually raised enough to go into production that cookie season. So like our pitch was in April. Then cookie season was in the fall, and I traveled for, it was like almost 6 months, like November to April, the same 5 people. Because conceptually early, the idea was like, I wanted to have it be multiple girls because I didn't want it to be like a traditional competition doc. I wanted to sort of play with that genre. And I wanted to show how girls operated in different contexts, like socioeconomic contexts, geographies, and different ages of girls. And so casting wise, we did like grassroots, moms groups, Girl Scout groups on social media, sometimes contacting councils, Girl Scout councils or school groups, and got like so much interest. So my casting producer must have interviewed hundreds of people on Zoom, and I interviewed dozens. And then I went and visited and spent time with people because it was like a big investment to go film for 6 months straight with like costly and time and everything. So I went and visited and narrowed it down to 7, and we filmed with 7, and 4 are featured in the final film. I guess I can say about the money part, like early on, I come from my grandparents are immigrant families, salespeople. Like one of my grandfathers started, but he was super poor growing up, was in the army in World War II, and then came home and started to sell condoms on the street after World War II, which is like smart, right? Everyone's coming home, and built it into like a wholesale business with his brothers. And my other grandfather drove a Coca-Cola truck and was a short order chef or cook. And then he sold Yellow Pages ads. So I just came from and my mom was she was a Girl Scout. She was the first person in her whole family to go to college. So I came from a culture of like salespeople. And I thought this was like just an interesting way to think about how young girls are exposed to that. And also to be able to see the constructedness of the economy and money. Like kids are playing, they're rehearsing, they're performing. What does it mean to be a Girl Scout? What does it mean to be a woman or girl? What does it mean to sell something, to be the salesperson? But soon realized how big it is, the $800 million business, and that they're not rehearsing. They're doing it. They're participating in the economy and learning on the job at a very young age. And so that became something that really shines through, I think, in the finished film, because I became sort of obsessed with that.
Well, and when you want to talk social action campaign, please come talk to me, because I'm already like flashcards. Like there's such a journey of entrepreneurship that's present with these girls. And how many people in the room were Girl Scouts or girl something? And it's
1 in 3 American women, 50 million alive today.
Yeah, and it is about leadership. It's about sisterhood. It's about parenting. But the business of cookies, you told it without telling it. You showed it, through the lens of these girls that started to figure out, like, they're making money by selling these cookies. Are they getting enough? What are the economics? What do they want with the resources that they're earning, right? Probably for some, because girls start selling as young as 5, maybe 6.
When they're daisies,
So
kindergarten.
Yeah.
If they want to. It's not mandatory.
Right. It's optional, but they get rewards. And are those rewards they want? Who says they're rewards? So share a little bit about the business of cookies. But from the perspective, and that's why I thought was so incredible, of how because what I saw is the girls learning about that, especially the young one, but Olive, who's one of your star salespeople. But I'm sure there's more. There was on the cutting room floor about that. But it seems to me they stepped into their power and their agency. Is maybe they would have done it anyway, but it felt like the camera could have helped that. Does that make sense? Like, maybe they were understanding their power a little more. I mean, I know you were asking them questions. You were just documenting their journey, but
by virtue of being of not just performing for your customers, but having cameras there too.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that, and I think it probably deepened their understanding of what they were actually doing as part of this system to raise money for themselves, to raise money for their groups, but to support the organization, which at the end of the day was about their leadership and their experience. Is that what that might have been like a
Well, I can't-
twisted kind of question, but
It's a lot of
Sure.
questions.
Yeah,
It's
I
good.
know, I'm
It's like a
awful at
lot.
that.
It's like a knot of
Emily's
questions.
gonna spank me. I don't know where Emily
Yeah.
is.
No,
She's
no,
like,
no.
damn, I'm a better interview than.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
I get too caught up in the story, Emily Ramshaw from the 19th. Thank you.
I love that whole constellation of questions. So, well, for the girl, I'm not going to ignore the last part, but I really don't want to speak for them.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that is a fabulous question to ask people who are participating in documentaries, like how they feel about the camera. As a filmmaker, like my observation and feeling is that people don't ignore the camera. It's not there. We're all human, and it is a presence in the room, and it does impact us. They are already performing, and I was interested in like leaning into that. You know, there's like when my daughter was younger, like just starting to be a tween, there were times when I started to notice, oh, now you want to be a big girl. Like you're telling me like, don't treat me like a little kid anymore. But then other times you're like, mommy, you know, I just want to be your little kid. And so we would sort of consciously talk about that. I'm like, are you my LG or my BG right now? Like my little girl or my big girl? And we were able to, and I wanted representation of girls to be able I wanted to represent girls in the way that they could be both. My characters, I think the characters, because there are real people, and there's also characters on screen, and I talk about that with them too now as the film is meeting the world. Like people think they know you, but they actually know this version of you that is not you, the person. But that's true. They know that from sales, because they're out there being the Girl Scout salesperson, and then they're also who they are. And so in the film, I wanted to show that and like be in their world and watch them turn on and off, watch them very early, 5 years old, you know, 7 years old, 9 years old, and then watch how that shifts and how they become very aware of it in different ways and also aware of the consequences of performing femininity, and the stakes of it. So I don't know if this is totally answering your question.
It doesn't matter.
But
That was just
hopefully it's
brilliant.
helpful.
So
Okay.
I just love you so much. But in that point, we were talking about performing cuteness. Like cuteness sells cookies, right? And there were some girls that were aging out, and there were a few lines in the film about, "Are you too old to sell cookies?" You know. So talk a little bit about, because I saw that sort of the dynamics. There's a character who has two older sisters that are aging out of this, but maybe speak just a little bit to that, and then do you want to take a few questions?
Sure, I'm happy
Yeah.
to.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, being in the economy, in capitalism, in a girl's body and a woman's body, and I'm sure, and being in a man's body has its own assumptions and challenges as well. So I want to acknowledge that, but this film is very much about that perspective of being, you know, and it's not the same for everyone. And we see that actually the girls of color are told that more. You know, that is real for them, that they are perceived. They've told me that they feel perceived sometimes as even older than they are, you know, at 14, 15 years old, treated differently than, because the Nikki's troupe and her sister's troupe is also, there's people for girls who are different races even within their troupe. So there's a scene where they're practicing with each other. And you were talking about outtakes. There is a scene where the girls are also enacting some of the racism that the black girls encounter when so it's not just, the one we show in the film is the cuteness, like, oh, you're too old to be a Girl Scout. And that's very true for them also. And they also encounter all kinds of, you know, vitriol. And their parents, you know, off camera, we've talked about it a lot, but like how Girl Scouts is preparing them for that. Selling cookies is, you know, allowing them a space where that is a kind of contained thing. The parents are there and they can talk about it because they are not encountering that in the world. And I think the same thing is true for appearances and this, like, the ideals of cuteness and how that shifts depending on how our own, you know, our bodies are, you know, whether we're disabled or not, like all kinds of things that are perceived and our age in these cultures. So yeah, the idea that like value is something I'm interested in as an artist, like in my storytelling, because it's a constructed thing. The good news is that value and economies are constructed, and the kids learn it like a game. It is a game. We are deciding the rules, and the good news is we are deciding the rules. But it's people in power mostly who are deciding the rules, and the girls get that too. And so the film, I wanted to show them questioning. Oh, wait, how does this work? Wait, I have to buy the inventory? I'm not just selling it? But is that fair? Or is it fair that I'm doing all the work and all the money, more of the money is going to someone else who manufactures the cookies? So, I guess hopefully it's okay that I'm rambling about these things, but thank you for, it's so fun to share it with people who've now seen the film, because you live with it for years making it, and I'm really, really grateful that it's landing.
Well, and I think reviews have been off the charts about this film as well. I'd love to give people a space to have questions. Emily, the person who asked the best questions, of course. I'm gonna.
No, actually, Girl Scouts mom.
Yeah.
I watched this. So I actually watched the press screener for this film with my Girl Scout, who is in the middle of cookie sales right now. I'm super curious. From the economics have shifted for the Girl Scouts, because when we were kids, if you were a kid Girl Scout, you collected money from the people you sold cookies to, and then you turned in the money to the Girl Scouts. The difference now is that the parents often front load the cash. So like I buy inventory and then my daughter sells it and I get repaid. And if she doesn't sell all the cookies, I'm out. And what's interesting to me about this film is you show these families for whom it's a serious economic challenge, because they desperately want to send their kids to Girl Scout camp. So they buy 1,500 boxes of cookies and then they've got to figure out how to offload it. And there's such a poignant scene where you have like this mom in El Paso, Texas, like I think it's El Paso, right? Who's like in tears because she's afraid they're not going to sell all their inventory, and the economic message that sort of sends. So my question is like, what do the Girl Scouts think of this film? Because I actually think like Girl Scouts National doesn't come across particularly well in this film.
Yeah. Well, I also can't speak for Girl Scouts USA, so it's a good question. We did have some folks in the audiences in the past 2 nights from the organization, from Utah and from National. So I'm curious about that question too. But I can't speak for them.
But they weren't part of it. They didn't have any kind of, They weren't.
No,
producers.
it's a totally independent film. They did know about the film. We were open that it was happening. There was nothing. It's not investigative in tone, as you know. And I think we were, respectful and honest about our portrayal. And really, my interest again was not about. It's the organization, but it was using the organization as not using it, but looking at the organization as a microcosm of bigger things in our economy, because it's how come we can be so outraged that this family's on the hook for cookies, but then what about healthcare? What about if your kid, like I have a friend in LA whose autistic child is no longer getting healthcare, and they're paying out of pocket for that, and that's what I'm outraged about. And I see it in the cookies, and I want to use that to talk about that. That's where I want to go. Like, I think it's whatever Girl Scouts USA thinks and whether it makes them look good or bad. Like Olive said on stage the other day, every single company and every single nonprofit and government and president, I think she said, has room for improvement. And so anyway, that's like what I think you're asking the right questions. And I think we should ask those questions of GSUSA and of every organization and company, and we can think about like the root of that question. How do we take care of each other? What happens when a kid can't go to camp? Is that okay with us? What happens when a family has to go out of pocket, go use credit for healthcare or basic needs? Is that okay? So that's sort of like cookies are a very delicious way of looking at the honey on the razor's edge of capitalism for me, that we are all very tempted to eat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, just yes. And I just want to say they'd be crazy not to embrace this film, because at the end of the day, these girls are saying everyone should be a Girl Scout. And you just hope, but I think sometimes I think like Book of Mormon, like they embrace the film. You can't like fight something that's so big. And they're creating that accountability. So I
do hope they love it, I'll say.
They should love it, in my view.
For the girls' sake, too.
I'd love if you guys can share. Oh, thank you. If you can share how you got the funding. And same with you, Jackie, like some of the projects that you guys helped to fund, and do you have a marketing plan and all that? Because you can have the most amazing film, we know, right? But if you don't have the marketing money, then nobody hears about it. Thank God it's here at Sundance, but so you're in an amazing platform. But most of these films, that are amazing that women make, like a lot of the times they don't have the marketing. So I'm curious to hear about your experience and yours, like how you got the funding for most of your films. And
Well, that would be a whole other panel / day, as I think you were saying earlier. But in short, launching our financing through Sundance Catalyst allowed us to have very kind of immediate and precious, rare access to a community of people devoted to independent storytelling, and to our artistic nonfiction storytelling. So we raised the funding through independent, mostly wealthy individuals, high net worth individuals who have foundations or who themselves are investing or donating to independent cinema. So our budget was raised entirely in that zone. And I can say it's about 50% equity and 50% grants for our budget raise. And it took time to raise it. So we did an initial raise and then over time, and then the finishing as we got into Sundance, which is not unusual for my films. And I try to kind of get the right ratio of grant to equity on each project, because I want my investors who want to recoup and be successful and keep investing in film. Yeah, that's our investment story. And marketing, you're right, it's really a challenge, and that's so specific to each film. But I think as filmmakers and as financiers, it should be top of mind.
Well, it's so complex. And one of the reasons we did this guide, if you haven't seen it yet, is just to talk about the different ways to finance films. And some of them, like you said, equity could be appropriate for some films. There are many it's not appropriate for. This one I can see it's going to be a highly commercial. I hope it's a bidding war for you. But maybe how much time? One more question, and then we'll take a minute to close out. Anyone have a final question? Marianne?
Could you talk a little bit about the factors that went into first picking the 7 families and then narrowing it down to the 4?
Yeah. So she asked about the factors, what I was thinking of in casting the film and figuring out which Girl Scouts I would film with. Yeah. So I was interested I knew that I wanted an ensemble that would be different, show diversity geographically in terms of their backgrounds, their ages. And then I also knew that I wanted girls who were not only ambitious and sort of passionate about their cookie goals, their external journeys, but from a storytelling standpoint, had rich inner journeys that we could follow and a capacity for self-reflection and family dynamics and units and parents that we could observe as they made choices and faced challenges. One of the questions I asked girls in my first interviews was like, I wanted the girls to be able to share their imagination and play with us and be part of the process too. So I would ask, like, if you could sell cookies anywhere in the world, real or imagined, in the universe, where would it be? And I got some of the most amazing answers. I mean, some girls were like Costco, because this, like strategic minded, right? Because there's this one Costco that if I could get that booth, and others were like, I would sell in a spacesuit, floating to Mars, So I think there was that kind of like just understanding how they were going to, because they are my collaborators, and it was so fun to collaborate with kids. There's many other factors, but those were some of them. Like RL, when we saw her first casting video, it was instantaneous. All of my producers and they all called me. They were like, "Did you see that one kid? She's amazing." And even she had me when she was doing math. Then on my Zoom call, I said, what's like, so you're doing math. You're selling. If I want 6 boxes of cookies, how much would that be? She goes, $36. I was like, you little 5-year-old being like, bucks.
No, the money moments in this film just spoke to me so powerfully, just in terms of, the girls in math and getting them comfortable. And I just want to close it out. But I want to bring the back up here, maybe, but for 1 second after. But how do we help or support you with this film? Like, what can we do? It's obviously going to get out into the world. And in so many ways. But how can we help and support you with this film in terms of any action we can take now with just so much love and respect? And I thought I'd ask V to come up with this as we close out too, because when so much of, I think, the message that I hope comes into this panel, we didn't have enough time to talk about it, is how do we fund more women's stories and storytellers? And how do we even think about unlocking more resources to do that? But before we do that, share how we can help and support you.
Okay. Thank you for that question. It feels like very nourishing to hear even the question. So with Cookie Queens, with the film itself and our team and the girls involved, we have a website, cookiequeensfilm.com. So you can join our mailing list. We'll kind of keep people posted if you want to help us get the word out. We are raising funds for impact and marketing, as you said. So because, I've had films that have big distribution, Amazon, Netflix, Paramount Plus, and they don't always do the kind of distribution and marketing that these films need. That is very bespoke, where we know the communities and we can partner with folks. And also that producers and filmmakers can be compensated and make a living wage while we're doing this work. So that is a huge, I am actually concerned right now. I'm so happy and so grateful. And also wow, how can I give this film the love it needs and have a living wage so I can have my kids supported while I'm on the road with the film, and then the girls being able to travel with it. So we are raising money for things like that, as well as hiring an impact producer and thinking through what are the best ways to make an impact. Yeah, and then just really quick, more broadly, for those of you who are thinking more broadly about supporting women filmmakers and artists, I think I've been doing this a long time, and one of the things that consumes a lot of energy is having to present all of your projects like a tasting menu to people, and as opposed to artist-based support. And I get that funders are going to have their names on the film, and they have to want to believe in that film. But also, if you believe in an artist or you believe in a producer, and you can invest in or donate to their company or to them and help them have that platform. Thank you. It's transformative. The times when I've had that through the Sundance Momentum Fellowship or even some development funding for this project, it's what makes us able to do it. Those of us who are working artists who don't come from extreme wealth, although obviously there's lots of degrees of privilege and nuance. So that's just something I would share more broadly, that I think for folks to think about, how can I actually take a risk on a human, on a person who is a storyteller and the stories that they want to tell.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Alysa. Stay here for a sec.
Okay. Oh,
I'm going to bring V up. And the reason I know this is a little unscripted, but I think it speaks to what you and Pat were speaking about earlier, and the generosity, V, too, of you being here. So when we put on a big SheMoney summit, we asked V if she would talk about money. And she delivered us a short video, which blew my mind. And it speaks to what Alysa just said about supporting artists and letting money flow. And I think that's part of, as we close out this panel, I just didn't want your words not to be in this space because of how you speak about it and supporting the artists. And so if you don't mind, I just would love for you to close us out with some of those words, because it has affected me profoundly in terms of how I show up to support artists.
And thank you for this wonderful, I can't wait to see your movie. I just want to say a few things about money, particularly to women. We're scared of it. I once, years and years ago, I once gave a speech, and you know who Susie Orman is?
Oh, yeah.
Susie,
I have her books.
Susie walked up to me and she said, I feel about money the way you feel about vaginas. You've got to know them. You got to love them. You got to feel them. And you got to make them feel better and make more, right? And she handed me a check for $100,000 for V-Day. And it was really an amazing moment, because it really occurred to me, and I've always known this, money is energy. Yes. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's just an illusion. It's an illusion, right? It's this paper. When people say they have $1 billion, what does that even mean? It's that they have the illusion of having a lot, and we have the illusion of not, right? And so part of what I want to say is, if you were lucky enough to get money, it's really, I hate to say this, it's not because you're special. It's because you're lucky. And I really can't say this enough, that if you were lucky, it's really your obligation to share your luck. It's really your obligation to share your energy. Because the thing about energy is, the more you share, the more you get. The more you share, the more you get. And I have had so many amazing things happen in my life that should never have happened because I gave so much away. And I'm not bragging about myself. Giving that money away was the best thing I ever did. Because you know what it did? It created all this energy in the world that then filtered back and made more energy in the world. When you catch money, when you hold it, when you contain it, when you think it's yours, which it's not because it's energy and energy cannot be held. And when it's held, it always gets polluted. That's why all these psychopaths, these billionaires, no one should have $1 billion. That is an insane idea. That's illegal. That's immoral. It's like containing, when you think about people having more money, for example, than 20 countries, that is insane. That is immoral. So if you imagine that you didn't ever hold money, but you just recirculated, and that you don't need credit for because it was never yours to begin with. Money isn't ours, it's energy. It's energy. Getting out of this notion of ownership, right? If you came into money, if you made money, I was fortunate that I made money. It's absurd that I made money on vaginas and other projects that I know how absurd that is. I don't think, oh my God, I'm so amazing that I made money. I think it's insane that I made money and have some. We all have to get into a much better attitude about, and this is the thing I want to say. I often see that people who have money hold it over people. They make people dance for money. They make people go through hoops for money. You don't have hoops, you have money. Stop making people dance for it. Give it to them. Give it to them without making them go through 13 million contracts and proving themselves. And just give it to them. If you like them, give it to them. I had a brilliant producer once. And do you know the actress Alysa Nahmias?
Yeah.
She auditioned for one of her first parts for a play of mine about homeless women. And she walked in the door and she gave the most astounding audition I've ever seen. I was like, oh my God, who is that girl? And she left and the producer said to me, well, go tell her she has the part. And I said, but we haven't seen the other people. She said, why do you need to see other people? You just saw a person who's a genius. And she said, when you see an actress who you love, give her the part right on the spot, because that will give her confidence. And that completely changed. So if you love someone's work, if you believe in them, here's the money. Go do it. Don't make them play all these games because you have money. All you've got is energy to share. That's my thoughts.
Well, I want to thank Bea for putting that in the room, for us talking about money, for making us brave with it, to support amazing work, amazing filmmakers, amazing artists. So we're going to have how much of a break, Maddie? So we have networking talk. We have a panel with Erin Hayes coming up next. The 19th is here, just to give, if you haven't met Emily Ramshaw over here, the co-founder of the 19th, who's partnering with us today. Please meet her. Introduce yourself to amazing people in the room. Alysa, congratulations again about the film.
Thank you, Jacki.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.